Walter's Sports Bar has been recognized by many local publications as one of the best sports bars in Washington, D.C., located across the street from Nationals Park and open year-round.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Nathaniel with 47 RBIs. Here's the pitch. Swing a high drive, blasted left center field. Kim going back at the warning track, at the wall. He leaps. It's off his glove again, and the ball lands on the warning track. 2 runs are going to score as Lowe is in at second with a double, and the Nationals lead it 2-0. That ball hit Kim's glove twice.
The review of the call is overturned. It is a home run.
Nathaniel Lowe will circle the bases. He will touch home plate to make the score 3-0 Nationals. Here's the set. Ferrer deals. Swinging a fly ball, deep left center field. Back Young, back Wood, not going to get it. It's gone. It's a grand slam, and the Dodgers lead 4-3. Henry deals. Swinging a high drive, deep right center field. Back Young, forget about it. It is long gone into the pavilion. It's 11-3. Muncy has 2 homers and 7 RBIs in the last 2 innings.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The Nats winning 2 out of 3 games at the National League West leading Los Angeles Dodgers was right there. The Nats on Sunday held a 3-0 6-inning lead, but they blew that lead as the Nats bullpen struck again. The Nats allowed 4 runs in the bottom of the 6th, 7 runs in the bottom of the 7th, and 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th. 4 Nats relievers officially, and I stress that word officially, combined to allow 10 runs, 9 earned in 2 2/3 innings, and even that doesn't tell the entirety of the bullpen story. A 13-7 loss at the Dodgers to lose 2 out of 3 games in the series. The Nats now are 32-46, including just a 2-13 over their last 15 games. The Dodgers now are a National League best 48-31. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. The Nats on Sunday in the top of the 9th actually scored 4 runs, thanks in part to the Dodgers using a position player, infielder/outfielder, Kike Hernandez as a pitcher. Oh, Kike was a joke as a pitcher. We'll get to that. It's not often that a team uses a position player as a pitcher while leading big, but we had that in this game. We also had the Dodgers essentially using Shohei Ohtani as an opener. He was the Dodgers' starting pitcher. He made just his 2nd start in this regular season, but he pitched for just 1 inning. Mark, this was an odd game for the Dodgers from a pitching standpoint. This was a really bad game for the Nats from a bullpen standpoint, and this ended up being a disappointing ending for the Nats in this series.
Al, I think there's a couple ways you can look at not just this game, but the whole weekend. There is a valid argument to say that they played some of their best baseball that we've seen from them in quite a while. And were absolutely in position to win all 3 games against the defending champs and, one of the best teams currently in the league. And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking that viewpoint and finding some signs of encouragement from all that. It certainly was a better brand of baseball for the most part than what we saw on that last homestand when they looked atrocious against 2 of the worst teams in the league. But you can also look at this, I think, and it applies to this game, but it applies also to Friday night as well, and say that when it really mattered, the things you need to do to beat a good team and thus prove that you're a good team yourself, they failed in almost every possible way. And that applied to pitching, it applied to hitting, it applied to base running, it applied to defense, you name it. They did not deliver in those moments outside of Saturday's win, which was an excellent game played by them. And that to me is troubling because I know that's a hard hurdle to overcome, but that's what this team needs to get to. If they're going to move beyond where they are right now and actually be taken seriously, they have to be able to deliver in those moments that make or break a game. And certainly on Sunday, there were a number of those moments from the sixth inning on that they just did not deliver at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of things I think about. Number one is in a season that is supposed to be a step forward season, being close isn't good enough anymore. Like, it's time to convert being close into winning. And the Nats just are not doing that with any kind of frequency this season. The other thing is when you bury yourself with an 11-game losing streak, you need to win some games now that you're not supposed to win. The Nats were not supposed to win 2 out of 3 games in this series, and that they were right there to do so. And then it just completely imploded on them was just really disappointing to see. I mean, I think in 2022, 2023, even last year, you lose 2 out of 3 at the Dodgers in competitive fashion. You say, okay, that's not bad. This season, as we have discussed, is different. And again, especially off that 11-game losing streak, you need to steal some victories now. You need to steal some series now. And the Nats, unfortunately, did not do that in this series. And the number one reason for the loss on Sunday ended up being an oh-so-familiar culprit this season. The Nats bullpen. Has the bullpen been better over the last month or so? Yes, it has been. But, going from being horrendous to being just bad, yes, that's improvement. But, what are we really talking about here? There still are way too many games in which the Nats bullpen gets wrecked. I don't mean just gives up a few runs. I mean gets shellacked. And that's what happened in this game. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 10 runs, 9 earned in 2 2/3 innings. And like I said earlier, that is the official final line. Yet Jose A. Ferrer officially allowing 1 run in 2/3 of an inning, but he, to the first batter he faced, gave up a 1-out grand slam by Max Muncy to left center field in the bottom of the 6th for a 4-3 Dodgers lead. So Ferrer, who looked so good in the 7-3 win at the Dodgers late night on Saturday night, 1 2/3 perfect innings, gives up a grand slam to the first batter he faces in this game. Then we had Ryan Loutos. He officially allowed 6 runs, 5 earned without recording an out. He in the bottom of the 7th faced 6 batters, got no outs, thanks in part to a fielding error by second baseman Luis Garcia Jr. as his wretched defensive season continues. But Loutos then gave up 5 consecutive hits, including a 3-run triple by Shohei Ohtani down the right field line for a 7-3 Dodgers lead. Cole Henry officially allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He in the bottom of the 7th faced 4 batters and got 3 outs, but he, to the first batter he faced, gave up a 3-run homer by Max Muncy to right center field on a 1-2 pitch for an 11-3 Dodgers lead. And Jackson Rutledge, he in the bottom of the 8th gave up, yes, a homer, a 1-out, 2-run homer by Shohei Ohtani to left center field for a 13-3 Dodgers lead. This was reminiscent of the Nats bullpen giving up those 5 homers in that loss to the Colorado Rockies a few games ago. And, people talk about like good hitting is contagious. With this Nats bullpen, it feels like the giving up of homers is contagious because while the bullpen hasn't been that bad in terms of giving up homers, it feels like when the bullpen gives up homers, the homers come in bunches. We saw that in that loss to the Rockies. We certainly saw that in this game.
Yeah, let's give some credit to the Dodgers lineup. You're facing the best in the sport, so that's one thing. However, as you point out, it just snowballed on them. And there's a lot to process here. Let's start with Ferrer. We said the other night after retiring all 5 batters, made the comparison to the Two-Face girlfriend that Jerry has on Seinfeld. And looked great on Saturday night. On Sunday, Yamahama, that was ugly. And you could almost tell. He's in a tough spot. The bases are loaded. But I think you have to bring him in to face the left-handed Muncy in that spot. Do you want to leave Soroka in, who has had all kinds of 6th inning troubles this year, had just loaded the bases, had just hit Freddie Freeman on an 0-2 pitch? So I understand the thought process behind putting Ferrer in. But look at what happens. As the at-bat starts to play out, you can tell he's not comfortable out there. There's something wrong with the mound. They call for the grounds crew to come out, clean up the mound for him. There's a hole at his landing spot. And it was like he couldn't get back into the rhythm of things. He wasn't comfortable. All of a sudden, he's got a 2-2 count, and he grooved a fastball down the middle to a really good hitter. And yes, it's lefty on lefty, and so that should make a difference. But you put a fastball there, and Max Muncy is going to destroy it. And so here we go. Bad Ferrer yet again. I don't know how he gets there, but he's got to find some level of consistency. And it's one thing to give up a hit in that situation, but it's another to give up a grand slam. I think that's where you have to find a way just to induce some different kind of contact. You don't get him, you move on to the next batter, and maybe you get out of it all. And that was such a letdown on a day when Michael Soroka had pitched so well up to that point.
It was for sure. And the other thing is we've seen two guys who had been bright spots in Cole Henry and Jackson Rutledge really come back down to earth here over these last few weeks. Rutledge more so than Henry. Henry's last few outings have not been particularly good. Rutledge's ERA now is at 5.94. Rutledge now is like right there with all those other bad bullpen ERAs for the Nats here this season. And you look at the Nats overall, a relief pitching ERA now of 5.92, next to last in the majors. A relief pitching whip now of 1.57, next to last in the majors. Again, for all the talk of the bullpen being better, the numbers are still just frightening. And you see them and you're like, wow, it really is that bad. And it is. And this game on Sunday was another example of the bullpen being bad.
And maybe that has something to do with Davey Martinez's decision making, which in the moment I didn't really understand. After Ferrer gives up the grand slam, it's a 4-3 game. It's still there for the taking for you. You get to the bottom of the seventh, and the guy you bring in is Ryan Loutos, the new guy, the eighth man in an 8-man bullpen, bounced around 3 different franchises this season, including the Dodgers. And he's the one that you go to there. I thought that was a little unusual. Cole Henry had not pitched at all in the series. Now, as you point out, he hasn't been as good lately. And when he did finally come in, he gave up the 3-run homer also to Max Muncy. Now, Davey's explanation was that he felt like Loutos needed to be the guy against the bottom of their lineup and that he was saving Henry for the top of the lineup. Okay, well, Loutos faced the minimum 3 batters. Error on Garcia, nothing you can do about that. Single, walk. Now here comes Ohtani with the bases loaded. He's allowed to make a pitching change at that point. If Cole Henry is your guy for the top of the lineup, why can't he come in and face Ohtani in that spot? You waited 3 more batters, at which point the game is out of hand. Now, Henry gave up an immediate 3-run homer, so maybe the result would have been the same. But you've got a shot to win a series against one of the best teams, if not the best team in baseball. To me, you got to throw your best arms out there. Sink or swim with them. Henry, we never saw Kyle Finnegan the entire weekend. We've talked about this before, how this kind of thing seems to happen. Can't you get through those final 3 innings with Henry and Finnegan combining for whatever that might be, instead of Ryan Loutos, a guy who I think we all acknowledge is probably not in it for the long haul here? I didn't love that reasoning. I didn't love that decision-making by the manager in that spot.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up the Finnegan thing. In a series at the best team in the National League, you don't deploy your ace reliever one time over 3 games. And I get it. Each game is different and you're saving him. But the spot for which you were saving him never came up. And Finnegan was never deployed in this series. We in this series saw Jackson Rutledge twice. We saw Jose A. Ferrer twice. We saw Zach Brixey for the 47th time this month. We did not see Finnegan once in this series. If he's your best guy, how are you not firing that bullet in this series at the mighty Dodgers? And this is something that I know is easy to Monday morning quarterback, but I do think as a manager, this is something you have to look at the conclusion of a series or at the conclusion of a road trip and say, okay, is there something I could have done different here? Is there something I could have done better here? If I could re-engineer this, what would I do differently in terms of using, the guy who in theory is your best reliever in Finnegan? Because that's not right. That doesn't sit well. That doesn't feel right that he's your best reliever. And in this series at a really good team, you don't pitch the guy once over 3 games.
Right. And, again, I understand, you're not bringing him into the 7th inning. Okay. And you can make an argument, hey, that's the best part of the Dodgers lineup. This is the whole game. You throw your best bullet right there and then use somebody else to close it out. That would be highly unconventional to do that. So I don't fault him for not doing that. What I could even go back and look at is Saturday night, he uses Zach Brixey in the 9th. Now, they won the game and they were ahead by more than 3 runs. So, okay. But you could argue, go ahead and put Finnegan out there in the 9th, close that one out, and maybe that makes Brixey available in this game to pitch where Loutos did instead. Maybe he wanted to stay away from Brixey after he had thrown the night before. It's the hardest thing to do. The hardest in-game thing to do as a manager is to manage your bullpen, because you're thinking about that game itself, but you're also thinking about the next day and beyond. And they are in a stretch here where they still don't have an off day until Thursday. But you want to get through it and say to yourself, be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I threw my best possible guys to give ourselves the best chance of winning a really tough series like this. And you can't say that at the end of this one for whatever reason that might be.
Yeah, and with Finnegan this season, he has 27 appearances. Jose A. Ferrer has 38. Finnegan has as many appearances as Brad Lord has. Finnegan has one more appearance than Jorge Lopez has. How long ago was Jorge Lopez cut from the team? And yet Finnegan has one more appearance than Jorge Lopez has. Finnegan has just 2 more appearances than Eduardo Salazar has. And Salazar got demoted to AAA. Again, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback this stuff. I get that. I'm just saying after the fact, if there is such a thing as a post-game debriefing that Davey Martinez undergoes, to me, one of the things you've got to ask yourself is, okay, as a manager, what can I be doing differently? What can I be doing better here to get my best reliever into more games? It's unacceptable that Kyle Finnegan has 2 more appearances than Eduardo Salazar this season, has 1 more appearance than the long-departed Jorge Lopez. That just is not right, man. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong about that at all. And I think it boils down to being willing to use your closer in some non-closing situations, non-save situations, using him when you're ahead by more, or even, God forbid, using him when you're down a run in a close game to try to keep it close and give yourself a chance at the end. We know Finnegan has been so durable. And yeah, he missed a few days there with a shoulder thing. That's really the first time he's ever had anything. And he's far from perfect. We know that. There's no guarantee he's going to come in and shut down this lineup. But I like his chances better than, say, Ryan Loutos against the Dodgers in the rubber game of a 3-game series. And so it's really unfortunate. And who knows what happens Monday against the Padres or Tuesday or Wednesday? Like, will we see him twice? Will we see him once? Will we not see him in that series? That's a really tricky thing to have to navigate, but you have to look up at the end of that and say, you used your best. And if you lose with your best, you live with that. But if you never even used your best, that to me is a little bit of a tough pill to swallow.
Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. July 4th weekend is around the corner, and for many people, that means that summer vacation is coming up. Will your windows keep your home protected while you're away? Save yourself the headache of coming home to a potential break-in by replacing your windows today with Window Nation windows. Right now, when you buy 4 windows, you get 4 windows free, plus you get a free exterior door when you purchase a house full of windows. And on top of that, you won't have to put any money down, pay any interest, or deal with any monthly payments for 24 months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. In this economy, what Window Nation is offering right now is a great deal. Your electricity bill is another good indicator of how well your windows are working, especially with summer temperatures here to stay. Lucky for you, Window Nation offers top quality, energy efficient vinyl windows built to withstand the sun's heat and keep your home cool. And did I mention that Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty? Don't miss your chance to protect and upgrade your home with Window Nation windows. Buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free now through June 30th. And remember, you won't pay a thing for 24 months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Life as a small business owner, everything is your problem and there aren't enough hours in the day. That's where LinkedIn Jobs and by proxy Nats Chat are here to help. For those crucial hires that you absolutely can't whiff on, turn to LinkedIn Jobs. Simply post your job and LinkedIn will take it from there, making sure it gets in front of the properly qualified candidates who are searching themselves. Find out why more than 2.5 million small business owners have turned to LinkedIn Jobs to grow their staff. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your jobs for free. linkedin.com/natschat. Terms and conditions apply.
Soroka ready. Now the pitch. Swing and a miss. Blows it by him with a fastball for strike 3. A new career high in strikeouts for Michael Soroka with his 10th strikeout of the afternoon.
Well, the Nats starting pitcher in this 13-7 loss at the Dodgers on Sunday was Michael Soroka, and Soroka had another start in which he did so many good things. There was so much to like, but at the end of the game, the final line isn't particularly good. Soroka officially allowed 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings. But if you watch this game, he pitched so much better than that. He had 10 strikeouts versus 2 walks. He gave up just 2 hits, both of which were doubles. He did issue a hit by pitch and a balk. He threw 85 pitches, 52 strikes, 33 balls. Soroka tossed 5 scoreless innings, but he left the game in the bottom of the 6th with the bases loaded and 1 out. And we know what happened next. Jose A. Ferrer gave up that grand slam. And so Michael Soroka's bizarro season continues. He has a really bad ERA. He has really good peripherals. Soroka for this regular season, 10 starts, ERA of 5.06, not good, but a whip of just 1.09, very good. A strikeouts per 9 innings of 9.96. That's quite good. Now, I will say this about Soroka. He does need to stop putting himself in these positions to wind up with final lines that aren't particularly good. You leave a game with the bases loaded, like bad things can happen, and with this bullpen probably will happen. So this isn't to just absolve Soroka of what went down here. But I have to tell you, I am fascinated by this season that he's having a 5+ ERA, but the whip, the strikeouts per 9 innings, really good and really encouraging.
He looked so good through those first 5 innings against the best lineup he's going to face all season long. He's allowed 2 runners to reach base through 5 innings, one of them on a walk, one of them on a double. Nothing else. 10 strikeouts, as you said. He had them completely baffled. If you saw some of the swings that some of the game's best hitters were taking against him, it felt like they didn't know what was coming. I think he's really good when he's on at what they call tunneling his pitches, where every pitch comes from the same spot out of his hand, and it's hard to detect. Is that a fastball? Is that a breaking ball? Is that a changeup? The swings they were putting out there, or at times even the pitches they were taking, suggested that they had no clue what was coming. And so how did it fall apart so quickly? It's a little bit fluky in the 6th inning. There's an opposite field double that, was a couple feet from going foul, and that's the number 9 hitter, the backup catcher, to give that up to. Okay. There's a 4-pitch walk of Ohtani, and if you look back on it, there's a couple of borderline calls that didn't go his way. Okay. He gets Betts to pop up, and then he hits Freddie Freeman with an 0-2 pitch that he admitted he just kind of yanked a little too hard, was hoping to get him to swing at something that broke out of the zone, but he, broke it too much. Part of me wants to see him have a shot to get through that and see what would happen. And he has a couple of times been given the opportunity to finish the 6th inning. But Davey Martinez knows the track record. He knows the numbers, and the numbers are hideous. Michael Soroka's ERA in the 6th inning this season is 22.85. How do you process something like that? That doesn't make sense. And is it simply a case of he wears out by the time he gets to that point in the game? Maybe that's it. But it's not like you saw signs of trouble in the 5th. Like all of a sudden by the 6th inning, that's it. The difference between, 74 pitches in the 5th inning and he got up to 85 in the 6th. That doesn't make sense either. It's a baffling thing. It's that one last little thing that's preventing this guy from looking really good, having a really good season to the point that you could argue the Nats should look to keep him and not trade him at the deadline. And I don't know what the answer is there, but if he can solve that one thing, there's the opportunity for them to have really struck gold with Michael Soroka. But if he can't, and at this point, he has not shown it consistently that he can get past that whole issue, this is just going to keep happening. And you're going to talk about a guy who looks great every night and still has a 5 ERA.
As things stand, I do think he has trade value, though, because I think teams are going to look at those peripherals and are going to lust after them. And I think they're going to say to themselves, our bullpen isn't atrocious like that Nats bullpen, so we can afford to have Michael Soroka pitch, say, 5 innings, and we'll take, 1 run in 5 innings, 2 runs in 5 innings, and we'll figure it out from there. It is a strange season, though, that he's having. I mean, his whip is appreciably better than Mackenzie Gore's, 109 to 119. Soroka in 53 1/3 innings has 1 more strikeout than Mitchell Parker has in 80 1/3 innings. After Gore, the best stuff on this staff this season has belonged to Michael Soroka, so that's good. That's very good. But yeah, you can't ignore the 5.06 ERA. Like, that matters. That's a big part of all this. And that certainly has been an issue. So we had what we had with the Nats pitching in this 13-7 loss at the Dodgers on Sunday. And then there was the Nats offense. The Nats for the game, 7 runs, 11 hits, 6 walks, 4 for 8 with runners in scoring position. The 11 hits were a homer, a double, and 9 singles. All of that is fine and dandy, but the Nats in the top of the 9th scored 4 runs, thanks in part to the Dodgers using a position player, utility man Kike Hernandez, as a pitcher. And this was another instance of a position player bringing shame to the game of baseball, bringing shame to the creation of Abner Doubleday. If, in fact, he really invented baseball, there's a lot of disputing regarding that. But anyway, you get the idea. Kike Hernandez was a joke in this game. 4 runs in a third of an inning. We've talked about this. The Nats have done this, have used position players as pitchers, and it almost always ends up being an embarrassment. What was so odd about this, and you asked Davey Martinez about it during his postgame session with you guys, the Dodgers were leading big and did the thing of using a position player as a pitcher. You could argue that's a real insult to the Nats. What did you make of Dave Roberts doing that?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I thought it came across absolutely in kind of an insulting manner, as if to suggest like, hey, we're beating you by 10 runs. We don't even need to put a reliever out there to close out this game. Well, by the way, he did have to put a reliever because Kike Hernandez was awful as he's throwing his eephus pitches up there. And, he retired 1 of the 6 batters he faced, and that was on a drive to the warning track by Nathaniel Lowe. So he wasn't fooling anybody with that stuff out there. I didn't like it. I can understand that Dave Roberts is saying, I've used up a bunch of relievers this weekend, and in particular in this game, because his starting pitcher, Shohei Ohtani, is limited as he comes back from elbow surgery, and he only goes 1 inning, 18 pitches. That surprised me. That surprised most people. The thought was, I think he was at 28 pitches last time out, that they were going to extend him at least to 2 innings this time, and maybe even more than that if the pitch count was low. The velocity was good. Everything looked fine from Ohtani's perspective. To pull him after 1 inning, you're essentially now saying, okay, we're going with the bullpen game, and you made that conscious decision to do that. So when you get to the 9th, sorry, you now got to use up the rest of your bullpen. You can't say, well, hey, we're in a tough spot, blah, 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 blah. I got to throw a position player out there and make a mockery of the game. And, Davey didn't take the bait when I asked him. I think he was trying to be diplomatic.
It stinks, but we did what we did. We came back and we had good at bats. Put the ball in play. We hit the ball. We scored a bunch of runs. They had to come back and use a regular pitcher.
My hunch is that he really did not appreciate that move from Dave Roberts. And you can say, hey, don't be trailing by 10 runs. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Sure, but I thought it was a bad look. I really don't think that kind of thing should ever happen unless you're truly in an emergency situation. And if you're going to do it, the guy had better at least finish the inning for you and not turn it into a mess the way that Kike Hernandez did.
I hate it just from a standpoint of it perverts the stats. Like, you get guys smacking balls all over the place. It becomes like a softball game. And it's not real baseball, I can't stand it from that perspective. I almost feel like MLB should expand the active major league rosters by 1, say it's got to be used as a reliever, and maybe by expanding bullpens, you avoid this, but it's not a good look. It doesn't look good. It really feels like amateur hour. And these position players, they go out there, and I don't know if it's that they don't care. I don't know if it's that they're just trying to avoid injury. But they do the stupid thing of throwing these eephus pitches. It's not funny. Like, the joke was funny 20 years ago. We've seen this enough now. It's not funny anymore. And these major league hitters murder these eephus pitches because, of course, they do. It's like batting practice. I don't know how that's a good look in any way, shape, or form for Major League Baseball, with an emphasis on major and league. Like, this is where the big boys play. This kind of stuff should not be happening at the highest level of professional baseball.
Right. It always used to be like this was a rare occasion that would happen every once in a blue moon, and you're losing by a bunch of runs, and maybe in a moment of levity you say, hey, Adam Dunn, you've always wanted to pitch in the big leagues. You never got a chance to. Here you go. Have at it. Have some fun with it. Or I remember Mark Grace, when he was with the Diamondbacks, did it once, and he went out there and he was mimicking other pitchers' motions and styles, and everybody was laughing about it, and it was a good icebreaker for what was otherwise a really bad game. But that stuff would happen once in a player's career. This is happening way too often now. And I think the lack of effort, if you want to call it that, of the way they're pitching is directly a response of the teams telling them, don't do anything that's going to hurt your arm. I think that's 100% what it is. And then that makes even more of a mockery. If you're going to say, hey, all right, you got an arm. Let's see what you got. Hey, you got a slider you can throw. Let's see what you got. And they won't do that. And they just lob it up there. And it's not funny. It drags out the game. It, in this case, actually turned it back into a semi-competitive game and forced Roberts to burn up another reliever anyway. So I did not like this in this case. And I do think it's happened way too much. I think MLB has tried to limit it by saying you have to be a 10-run difference. It has to be the 9th inning. But the fact that it still is happening, I'm not sure why this is still so common in the sport.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just because you're trying to preserve your relievers because teams are using relievers so much. And I get that, but it's a really bad look, as we have been discussing. Nathaniel Lowe did homer for a third time in 2 games. Lowe in this game as the Nats starting first baseman and number 4 batter, 1 for 3 with a 3-run homer, a walk, and an RBI sac fly. I know you just wrote about Lowe for MASNsports.com. We just talked about Michael Soroka having a fascinating season statistically. I would say the same thing about Nathaniel Lowe, because what you think about the season he is having is a real reflection of the stats that you value. If you go by, say, homers and RBI, he's having a nice season. He's got 13 homers, 51 RBI. If you go by the slash line, he's not having a good season. His batting average is 229. His on base is 296. His slugging is only 403. So it's a really strange season to digest and process. Is Nathaniel Lowe having a good offensive season or a bad offensive season? I'm not sure that we know the answer to that.
I don't have the right answer for that either. I've been mystified by it as well. I do know this. We are 3 games away from the halfway point of the season, and he is on pace for 27 homers and like 104 RBI. And you can say, oh, well, that only matters so much and RBI is not an important stat. Okay, yes, I get it. That's not the number one stat to judge a guy. It's hard to drive in 100 runs without having a good season, though, okay? It means you're getting a lot of opportunities and you're delivering in a lot of them. And I think what it boils down to is this. He's not consistently producing for them, but he is delivering in moments of significance, I feel like, for the most part. And while he's not a great player, I think he's doing exactly what they kind of needed him to do. Hit for some power, drive in some runs, hitting behind the big boys in front of him, play solid defense at first base. That's kind of what they wanted all along, right? And so I think I'm kind of apt not to look at the stats as much as I am just to look at the results. And the results have been pretty good for him. And I think this has worked out fairly well. And I think it raises a really interesting question as we look ahead. He's got another year of team control. We know they went to arbitration with him this year. Do they hang on to him, go through that process again? And you're probably paying him, I'm going to say at least $13 million, maybe $14 million next year. Is that an appropriate price that you're willing to pay for somebody who does what he does? Or are you saying, yeah, we're still keeping the budget pretty tight. We're not so sure we want to shell out that kind of money for a guy who has some flaws. And let's try the old trade him while he's still got a year and a half of control left and see what you can get for him. It's the situation they were in with Lane Thomas a year ago. They got a good package back for Lane Thomas. Would they get the same for Nathaniel Lowe? I don't know. I'd be fascinated to know the answer to that question. But I think it's a really interesting question as the calendar gets ready to shift here from June to July. I think there's a valid argument that Nathaniel Lowe can and should be a part of this team moving forward, especially if they actually have visions of trying to win in 2026. But I think there's also a valid argument to say you can get something for him right now. And if you get the kind of offer you got for Lane Thomas a year ago, maybe you do make that move because you don't necessarily think that he's worth the salary that he's going to command next year.
Well, he, for the Texas Rangers, was a consistently good player. Not a great player, but a good player. He was like a 3-WAR player per season for the Rangers, which is pretty good. This season, he's not tracking in that regard. You know, his advanced defensive stats actually are not very good. So, like, the eye test does not match up with the defensive metrics, which is kind of like his offensive stats, where, you know, a certain batch of stats don't match up with another batch of stats. This is his age 29 season. You know, if the Nats were further along in the rebuild, I think there'd be a really compelling argument to keep him. But we don't know where the heck they are in this rebuild right now. And so I feel like there should be a temptation to trade him and that the Nats may well give into that temptation. I really wanted us to not be talking about trade chips this year. I don't know that we're going to avoid that. We'll see. We have a few weeks to go until the trade deadline discussions get really serious. But, you know, you think about Nathaniel Lowe, you think about Michael Soroka. I suppose Kyle Finnegan, he's another guy who's had kind of an odd year. He's got 5 blown saves. That's not good, but some of the other stats are all right, so maybe you can get something for him. But I think it is going to be interesting to see who truly can be traded for something of consequence this season if, in fact, the Nats end up being sellers. We've talked about Ahmed Rosario. Maybe you get something for him. But, yeah, unfortunately, I think we do have to start entertaining these thoughts given the state of the Nats record at this point.
I think the 11-game losing streak kind of forced that issue. And, maybe they've got a month to go. Maybe they can climb back enough to try to make that a moot point. But where things stand right now, you have to consider those possibilities. It's not where anybody wanted to be heading into July, but, it's the truth. It's where they are. And I think their actions, less so with the guys who are pending free agents, but more so with somebody like Lowe, who does have another year of control. I think their actions are going to say a lot about what they think their plan is for 2026. There may be a lot to interpret from what they do or what they don't do to tell us what they think about this team actually taking that next step that everybody desperately wants them to take.
You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Next up for the Nats is a 3-game series at the San Diego Padres. Game 1 Monday night at 9:40. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2 Tuesday night at 9:40. Trevor Williams will be the Nats starting pitcher. And Game 3 Wednesday afternoon at 4:10. Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Turner leading off third. Muncy off second and Smith off first. Hudson sets the kick, the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss! He struck him out with a slider, and a curly W's in the books. The Nationals have tied this National League Division Series at a game apiece as Daniel Hudson walks a tightrope in the bottom of the 9th inning, and the game is over. The Nationals on the field to celebrate a victory as they even the series here in Los Angeles.